So today, I have a very special video for you. I've been away from YouTube since 2023, but am back with my first full flight in the simulator, and I couldn't be more excited. So a bunch of products have come out since I made my last video in the simulator, and I'd say the biggest release was this. A fully study level one-to-one with real life 777 by PMDG. So if you followed the other channel, you'll know the 777 is my favorite commercial aircraft and my go-to for long-haul flights. So until now, we didn't have a proper 777 in the simulator that you could say was truly one-to-one with real life. So in this aircraft, all the systems, switches, and physics come straight from Boeing and are exactly what you would expect to experience when flying this plane in real life. So today's flight will be about 9 to 12 hours, depending on the weather, from here in Osaka, Japan to Los Angeles, California. It's going on 2 p.m. here in Japan, and we should be reaching US airspace at around 5 to 6 a.m. their time. This could all be extended though, as I am using real world traffic and it's an absolute mess right now in Southern California due to the winds and wildfires. So it should all make for a very interesting flight. We also have crazy winds here in Japan, so we are going to have an extremely windy flight both during the takeoff and landing portion. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this plane fired up and all the passengers and crew boarded so we can head to California. So something super cool that they added in my absence is entire cabins. You now have entire passengers and crews inside the planes that you're operating in the simulator, which is super cool. And all the people are extremely detailed, which is very nice. They all have animations. Some of them even have like iPads and stuff, which is super cool. But let's go ahead and get into the cockpit. Alright, so this is going to be our flight deck for the next 9 to 12 hours. It's going to be back. Alright, well the plane's already started up because the PMDG planes are different than the Captain Sim, so we don't have to start it up from scratch. So let's go ahead and kick off the checklist from wherever we need to leave off. Air Data Inertial Reference Unit on. Primary flight computer is auto and guarded. Battery switch on. IFE pass seats on. Cabin utility on. APU start. APU is already on. APU generator switch is on. Left and right bus tie switch is auto. External power switch is off. Left and right main generator switches on. Left and right backup generator switches on. Left and right drive disc switches, drive, and guarded. Left wiper off. Alright, left center panel. Voice recorder auto. Emergency light armed and guarded. Service interphone off. Pass oxygen guarded. Window heat all 4 on. Ram turbine guarded. Left and right primary engine pump on. Center 1 and center 2 electric pump switches both off. Demand pump selectors all 4 off. No electronics and smoking on. Seatbelts off. Right, left lighting panel as desired. Storm light off. Landing light switches off. Right center overhead panel. Okay, cargo fire arm switch is off. Cargo fire discharge switch is guarded. APU fire discharge handle in. Fire / overheat test button. Test. Alright, it's working. Engine panel set. EEC mode switches normal and guarded. Start selectors set to norm. Auto start on. Fuel and jettison left and right nozzles off. Fuel to remain off. Fuel jettison arm off. Crossfeed switch is off. Fuel pump switch is off. And also saying press. Anti-ice selectors, all 3 auto. Bright lighting panel as desired. Indicator light switch hold test. Alright, it's working. Logo and wing light as desired. Beacon off. Taxi, runway turn off, and strobe lights off. And they are all off. Alright, right row, overhead panel. Equipment cooling auto. Gasper on. Recirculation fans on. Temp selectors as desired. It's a little cold right now since we're in the winter. Left and right pack auto. Left and right trim air on. Left center right bleed isolation auto. Left and right engine bleed on, but it states off on the lights. APU bleed auto. Pressurization panel set. Forward and aft outflow valve auto. Landing altitude selector off, and wiper right off. Alright, now it's time to set up the FMC and get the flight plan loaded into the plane and getting the display set up properly. Okay, I've got the flight plan loaded into the plane. Now it's time to get the autopilot data loaded into the glare shield panel. Alright, got to set the barometric pressure to the local setting, so that is 30.19. The traffic, weather, and terrain modes off. FPV or meters set. And I believe they use a metric system in Japan, so I need to set meters. Let's set the FPV. Flight directors on. Left and right auto throttle switches on. Alright, speed selector set to V2 plus 10 knots. So V2 is 190, so set it to 200. Already set to 200. Pre-select LNAV and VNAV. Autopilot disengage bar up. Heading selector takeoff heading. Altitude selector set to cruise. Oxygen mass test. Oxygen's working. Forward panel brightness controls. Navigation display control, air data source switches, all 3 off. Clock set. Inboard display selector set to MFD. Heading reference guarded. PFD and D check. Standby instrument set. Glide slope inhibit off. Flap override guarded and off. Gear override guarded and off. Terrain override guarded and off. Landing gear lever down. Alternative gear switch guarded. Auto brake selector RTO. ECAS check. Gear down. Fuel quantity proper. Cancel recall. Alright, lower center display check. Second engine indicators check. Status page. Alright, everything looks normal. Checklist. Checklist reset. Alright, center display control off. Upper and lower center display switches as desired. Right, alternative pitch and trim levers neutral. Speed brake lever down. Thrust levers idle. Reverse stowed. Flap lever in agreement up. Parking brake set. Stabilizer cutout switches guarded. Fuel control switches cut off, not lit. Alternative flap selector off. Engine discharge lights off. Weather radar test. Alright, before pushback and start checklist, close the doors. Alright, APU verify on. APU is on. External power verify off. External power off. Alright, hydraulic panel set. Right, electric demand auto. Center 1 and center 2 electric primary on. Left electric demand auto. Center 1 and center 2 air demand auto. Seatbelt signs auto. No electronics and no smoking on. Left and right fuel pumps on. Center fuel pumps on. Beacon on. Stabilizer trim set for takeoff. Alright, we are ready for pushback. Let's go ahead and get it started.
Release parking brakes, please. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at wheel. Please set parking brakes.
Alright, set parking brakes.
Waiting your confirmation for a good engine start.
Alright, let's go ahead and get the first engine started. Let's go ahead and turn on fuel control switch 1. Oh man, I love the sound of the 777 starting. I love that howl, it's so good. Alright, let's go ahead and get engine 2 started up.
We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Unlocking gear. Left is clear. Right is clear.
Alright, fuel control switch for engine 2. Oil pressure is good. Alright, before taxi, APU off. Generators verify on. No faults. Left and right start selector verify norm. Active both on norm. Engine anti-ice as required. Everything set to auto. Flaps set for takeoff. Flaps 5. Flight controls free and correct. Alright, flight controls are working good. ECAS, pushback tug removed. Taxi lights on. Alright, been cleared to taxi. Let's go ahead and give it some power. So just because of the way this plane is built, you can't take turns when taxiing, when going over a ground speed of 10, because the rear or main gear actually moves along with the nose gear to help reduce the turning radius of the plane, which is pretty interesting. So it's cool that they have that modeled in this plane in the simulator as well. And in some turns, you have to come out way far before starting the turn because we are very far forward in this plane. And once again, it's extremely long. So you have to kind of compensate, which makes it a little difficult to taxi, but also that kind of adds to the realism and fun points of the aircraft, in my personal opinion. So one really cool thing about this airport is the fact that it's basically in the middle of a bay. It's an island, and the island cuts off right at the runways. So right at the edge of this fence is the ocean. You know, all that white, foggy haze you see, all that fog out there, that's all water. So flying into here when you can't see anything is definitely very scary. I've done it before. I actually posted a video that got a lot of views. It went pretty viral actually, many years ago. But this is the airport that I flew into when I did that video. Go ahead and hold short of the runway. Get the lights turned on. All right, everything's set and ready for takeoff. Single parking brake. We are lined up at the runway. Engine stable. Takeoff thrust set. Autopilot on. Flaps 1. Alright, that was very smooth. Flaps up. Alright, so since we're just headed straight out, we don't have any sort of turns we have to do, and we're smooth sailing pretty much for the rest of the flight, I'd say. But we do have some procedures that we are going to be crunching out once we get to 11,000 feet, because we do have to reset the barometric pressure and also turn off our lights. But until then, I'm going to go ahead and monitor the plane and just make sure our climb out is nice and smooth. So I'll check in with you guys around that time. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to 11,000, so I'm going to go ahead and set the barometric pressure to standard pressure and disable our landing lights and wing light and the taxi light. Well, anyway, the plane is climbing beautifully, even though we do have some pretty crazy wind hitting the plane right now. But we should be smooth and shouldn't have to do anything until we hit our cruising altitude. So anyway, I'll check in with you guys once we hit our cruising altitude. Alright, so we have hit our cruising altitude of 29,000 feet, so the plane is handling itself perfectly right now. So I'm going to let it flight itself for about 11 and a half hours. That's what the plane says it's going to take for us to get to Los Angeles. So anyway, I will be checking with you guys before we hit to Los Angeles. I will be checking in about, I'd say like 9 hours and 45 minutes to 10 hours and 30 minutes once we're in American airspace, so that I can pre-plan the arrival into Los Angeles. So anyway, I'll check in with you guys in about 11 hours, and I'll see you in America. All right, we have hit our top of descent, and I kind of overshot the top of descent a little bit, which is fine because we're gonna have to loop around to the other side of LAX due to the winds. But right now I'm gonna go ahead and set up the FMC and other parts of the plane so that we are prepared to get down to LA. All right, going to go ahead and drop down our altitude to 19,000 since I got the flight plan loaded in, and that's the next altitude it says we need to hit. Oh, over there you can see Edwards Air Force Base. It's that little strip right in the center of the screen. Alright, enabling the terrain radar since we're getting pretty close to the mountains. And we should be approaching this turnaround for LAX pretty soon. 19,000. And had set our next altitude down to 14,000. I'm trying to align our vertical speed so that we hit 14,000 as soon as we hit the circus waypoint. Go ahead and cut down the airspeed to 270. We're already on idle, so I'm going to go ahead and use speed brakes. Right, next altitude we need to drop to is 10,000. 250 for our airspeed. Decreasing our vertical speed so that we hit 10,000 at the clipper waypoint. Reduce our speed brakes since we're at 250, and then decrease our vertical speed a little more. Go ahead and drop our next altitude down to 9,000. Some crazy weather, we can't even see the airport. Usually we can see LAX from here. Go ahead and set it to 8,000 so we can properly align ourselves. So 8,000 for judo. So I'm going to get down lower. 10,000, so set our barometric pressure to what it is at the airport, which is 2986. Drop our landing lights. Okay, Kenzo, we're supposed to be at 7,000. 240 for the airspeed. Use a tiny bit of speed brakes. Still can't see the airport. Mildly concerning. And then first level flaps. Okay, next one is 6,300. Approach mode on. So lunar is 5,000. Increase our vertical speed more. Arm our speed brakes. Okay, so it looks like lunar and gate have the same altitude, so I'll align our altitude to hit 5,000 at gate. And then, oh, supposed to hit 180. And set it to 3,600 for Honda. Go ahead ahead and use some speed brakes because we were running in way too fast. Way too fast right now. Flaps 5. Flaps 15. Have not had any visual of the runway at all this entire flight, so this is pretty nerve-wracking. Haven't had a flight like this in a very long time. Step down to 170. Go ahead and drop our gear. Flaps 20. Alright, there's our airport. Finally. Took enough time. Flaps 25. Flaps 30. Set it to 148. Thousand feet, my plane.
1,000.
Disabling auto throttle. Twenty. 10. Knots. All right, welcome to Los Angeles. we were at minimums, I almost lost the plane. We got hit by a huge gust of wind, and that really threw it off there. All right, crossing 25 right, so I'm going to turn the strobe light on. Go ahead and disable the taxi light. Oh, and strobe. Forgot the strobe. Alright, stop. Parking brake set. APU on. APU's on. Alright, go ahead and cough engines. Alright, well, it was a pretty good flight. A little over 10 and a half hours, I'd say, almost 11. First time in the PMDG 777, absolutely beautiful. I loved every single second of it. Been waiting years for this moment. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the flight. If you guys want to see more flights like this, go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment to let me know what you guys want to see in the future. So anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.